Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video we've got a couple of things to discuss, including a couple of signings, some injury updates, a quick update on the buyout window, and some trade rumors involving the New York Rangers, Vegas Golden Knights, the Buffalo Sabres, the Calgary Flames, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And we'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Hockey Channel. Now, as usual, I'll kick things off today with the signing update. Over the past couple of days, there haven't been much signings as of right now, so there's only one signing to talk about. It was a pretty big signing, and that is that the Washington Capitals have signed Tom Wilson to a 7-year contract extension with an AAV of $6.5 million. Now, I've seen a lot of people say this is a really bad deal and will age poorly. I don't think it's that bad. I do think the term is quite long. Wilson is 29 right now, so he will be ending this deal when he's 36 years old, which is going to be a little bit risky given the fact that he's going to be making $6.5 million till he's that age. But still, he's a really good player. For Wilson, he's actually had some pretty good seasons over the past couple of years. This past year, like we said, he was injured for a while. He didn't even get started to play until early January. But he played in 33 games, putting up 22 points, which is solid. And the past couple of years, he hasn't done overly bad as well, putting up 52 points in 75 games the year prior. And then the year before that, he put up 33 points in 47 games. So he's not going to put up a point per game pace for a season, but he's still a really good forward. And playing with Lyubushkin on the top line and being the type of physical and fighting forward he is, Wilson's really good at what he does. Now, is he worth $6.5 million? I could see it, given the fact that he's been on pace this past couple of years to put up at least 50 points. I think if he can continue to put up 50 to 60 points consecutively, playing on the top line with Ovechkin, I think he could definitely work up to that $6.5 million cap hit, and I think it could definitely be worth that. But I just think that the term's a little bit longer. I would have gone for a 4 or 5 year term to where he was in his earlier 30s instead of a 7-year term, but they do wind up getting him locked up long term. So, like I said, it's really good. Wilson's a guy who usually plays on the other wing with Ovechkin, so keeping him with Ovechkin over the next couple of years makes a ton of sense. I know there was some talk earlier in the season that a team like maybe Ottawa or Toronto would be interested and that Wilson might be being shot by the Capitals. I never really believed that. And they are able to get him locked up long term. So a really good move there by the Capitals. And even though I think it's a little bit too long to sign Wilson to 7 years at $6.5 million, I think that cap hit is pretty good. And even though it might not age well in the last couple of years, might be pretty bad for the Capitals, I think Wilson will still be able to live up to a contract at least for the next 3 or 4 years while Ovi's still playing. So it's going to be interesting to see, but they at least get to keep their really physical forward who plays on the top line with Ovechkin for the next few seasons. So a really good deal there for the Capitals. But that's the only signing we're going to get to here today, as that's the only signing that we have gone to over the past couple of days. So going to be interesting to see what other signings happen over the next few days. Going over to the injury update part of the video, we haven't gone to the injury update part of the video up to this point in the off season, but there has been a couple of injuries that I want to acknowledge right now. First, with Buffalo, I forgot to mention this when it happened, but around the draft, there was some reports that Buffalo Sabres forward Jack Quinn had an Achilles injury, and he's going to be out for the next 4 to 6 months from that point in time, which would have put him out until somewhere between October and December. It seems like he is going to be out until sometime around November or December, so it sounds like Quinn's going to be out for a while. This is most likely the reason why Olofsson hasn't been traded at this point in time, because Quinn is going to be out for the first little while, so it's going to be interesting to see. But losing Quinn, who actually had a pretty good rookie season last year, is not fantastic news for the Sabres, and hopefully they can overcome his injury. With Isac Lundstrom, who just a couple of days ago suffered an Achilles injury as well, he's going to be out for the next 6 months. So a lot of people say he's going to be out until January. He could be out until February as well. So he's going to miss a big chunk of this season. So that's not really great news. Lundstrom's really carved himself out a really good role as he's like a third-line center or possibly a second-line winger on occasions. So to lose him for the first few months of the season, that's not going to be good for the Ducks. So I'm not sure if they're going to go out and replace him, because he is going to be back, but it's just going to be a while. So going to be interesting to see, but a good key middle six piece on the Ducks is now going to be out for a long period of time in Isac Lundstrom. And then we got some news last night that was not very good for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but could help facilitate the NYR Karlsson trade. And that is that Jake Gensel is going to be out for the next 3 months at least, due to a ankle surgery that he's had. So for Guentzel, he's a solid top 6 winger for the Penguins. He really is a really good player for the Penguins. He's a really good partner with Crosby, so to lose him for any period of time is not great. He's going to miss, at the very least, the first month of the season. They said that he'll be reevaluated in 3 months' time, which would be late October, early November. So he will at least be out until around then. So it could be longer, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see. He's going to be back early in the season, it's definitely sure. It's just going to be interesting to see exactly how long he's going to be out. And I have seen a lot of people say that he is going to be LTIR eligible. So if he is LTIR eligible, he will be able to be put on LTIR and giving the Penguins a little bit more cap flexibility in the form of $6 million. So that's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, it could help facilitate a Karlsson deal in the short term, but once Guentzel gets back, they would have to try and work out the cap so that they could be able to be cap compliant when Guentzel gets back. But it's going to be interesting to see. I definitely think Guentzel's a really good forward, so losing him for the first month and a half maybe of the season is not going to be overly fantastic for the Penguins, and hopefully he gets a speedy recovery. But we know that Guentzel is going to be out for the first month at least, maybe a little bit longer for the Penguins. We know Lundestrom with his Achilles injury is going to be out until probably sometime around January, February, and we know that Quinn with his injury is probably going to be out sometime around November, December, maybe even January with his Achilles injury. So it's going to be interesting to see, but some pretty bad news there for the Sabres, the Ducks, and the Penguins as they all lose players to injuries. Next, we go over to the buyout window update. Not too much updates here. As of the recording of this video, I have not seen any buyouts happen yet. Arizona's buyout window ended yesterday, so they have not bought out anyone. The Wild's buyout window, I think, ends today. I'm not sure if they have to be placed on waivers for buyout purposes the day before the buyout window ends or just before the buyout window ends. So I'm not sure if the Wild will have the opportunity, but like I said, the Wild, most likely, in my opinion, should not be willing to buy out anyone. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I don't expect the Wild to buy out anyone. The Bruins, the Oilers, and the Rangers all have their buyout window start yesterday and go till tomorrow. So, like I said, all 3 of those guys could try and buy out someone. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone does. Boston, like I said, is probably the most likely to buy out someone, but I don't expect any one of those 3 to buy out anyone. And then Pittsburgh and Anaheim's buyout windows will start later today and go on until Monday morning. So it's going to be interesting to see, but like I said, I definitely expect Pittsburgh to do something. I wouldn't be shocked if Anaheim did something, but especially with the Lundestrom injury, I think they'll most likely keep Henrik and Silverberg. So I would be a little bit surprised if they did buy out anyone, but I would definitely expect Pittsburgh to buy out someone. And whether that be today or tomorrow or Monday before the buyout window ends, I definitely expect the Penguins to buy out someone. So definitely interesting to see. Maybe not today, but especially tomorrow when the second day of the buyout window happens, I would expect the Penguins to buy out at least one player. So going to be interesting to see, but as of the recording of this video, we haven't had any buyout updates. And Minnesota will have their buyout window for the next couple of hours. And then you'll have the Rangers, Oilers, Bruins all having the buyout window until tomorrow on Sunday. And then you'll have the Ducks and Penguins having a buyout window until Monday. So that's the buyout update. But as of right now, no buyouts, and the Arizona Coyotes buyout has closed. So going to be interesting to see what these teams do. And lastly, here we go over to the trade rumor part of the video. So we've got a handful of things that we want to discuss today. The first 3 are all involving defensemen. First, there was an article I saw from The Athletic where someone on The Athletic was talking, and he said that if the Rangers don't have Zac Jones as a regular NHL defenseman this year, it might be a little bit more likelier that the Rangers wind up trading him. Now, Zac Jones is a pretty good young player. He recently signed a 2-year deal with the Rangers. He was supposed to at least challenge for the role on the left side of the third pair last year with Braden Schneider. He got into some games, he didn't really do fantastic. Eventually, that turned into Ben Harper's position for the Rangers for a majority of the season, and then after they went into the deadline, that became Mikola's position. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to get that position. They did bring in 2 key left shot defensemen who could challenge Zac Jones for that spot, in Eric Gustafsson and Connor Mackey. Both are pretty decent defensemen. Mackey's can play third pair minutes, and Gustafsson's a really good offensive defenseman who can definitely play third pair minutes. So if both of those guys, or at least one of them, is able to make the team, that might push Jones to being a seventh defenseman. And according to Arthur Staple in The Athletic, he said that it might be a little bit more likely that instead of keeping him as a seventh defenseman or risking putting him on waivers, Zac Jones may be dealt by the New York Rangers. So it's going to be interesting to see if Jones winds up getting dealt or stays. He's a really good player who I think should be an NHL defenseman. If he were to be placed on waivers, I think there would be some teams interested in him. And if he was to be available for trade, I think there would definitely be some teams interested in him as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. But like I said, I think Gustafsson and Jones make the most sense to be on that third pair. And if Jones is not going to be on that third pair consistently, it might make sense to trade him. And if they do try and trade him, there will be a ton of teams interested in a solid young third pair defenseman. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it does seem like the Rangers could possibly trade one of their young defensemen if he doesn't make the roster this year. Going over to the Golden Knights, I've seen a couple of rumors out there that if the Golden Knights need to clear cap space later this offseason, they could turn to Alec Martinez for some cap flexibility. Now, I've looked at this myself. They are cap compliant with a 23-man roster as long as Robin Lehner is on long-term injury reserve. So if Lehner starts the season on long-term injury reserve and the Golden Knights think that he's going to be on long-term injury reserve for the entirety of the season, then I definitely think that they should be cap compliant and shouldn't need to do anything. The only reason I would think they would need to trade Martinez is if Lehner's healthy and they're unable to find some sort of a trade for Lehner and they have to work out something else. Because at this point in time, with Lehner and LTIR, they have about $900,000 in cap space, maybe closer to $850,000. And they do have a 23-man roster, so they can run with the guys they have right now. But if Lehner's healthy, they'd be over the cap by like $4.1 million, so they need to move out someone. And I'm not sure many teams will be wanting to take on Robin Lehner's contract after all the injuries that he's went through this offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I would expect that if Lehner's injured, and he's injured and he's placed in LTIR to start the season, the Golden Knights are fine. They don't need to make any moves. But if Lehner is healthy, and he might possibly be, then I do think the Knights will have to make a move. And I've talked about this multiple times before on multiple blog posts and YouTube videos, as well as my off-season preview for the Golden Knights, that if the Golden Knights need to free up cap space, Alec Martinez would be a prime candidate for that. Now, he's entering the final year of his deal, and he is making a $5.25 million cap hit, so trading him would free up enough cap space to become cap compliant if Lehner was healthy. He's a decent second, third pair defenseman who can be a really good veteran leader. So if there was a young team out there looking for a top four defenseman, I could see him have some interest in Martinez. Martinez, he is a little bit on the older side now, so there might not be a lot of teams interested in him, but he's just coming off a really good season, and he helped the Golden Knights to the Stanley Cup. So I would not be too shocked if there were some teams that were looking for a top four defenseman that maybe missed out on a guy like Karlsson or Hannafin that could use a veteran guy like Martinez in their top four. Now, it would be a pretty big blow to the Golden Knights if they were to trade Martinez, which is why I think they would only do that if Lehner is injured. But on top of that, they do have a really deep blue line. They still have Whitecloud, Haig, Pietrangelo, McNabb, and Theodore. So they can easily move one of Whitecloud or Haig into the top four and be okay with that. They have a couple of guys who did really well last year in Packle and Hutton, who could both challenge for a third pair role, or they could even bring in one of their younger defensemen like a Korzak or a Cormier or a Cheka and try and see if any of those guys could try and challenge for that third pair role. So they have a really deep blue line. If they were to move Martinez, it wouldn't be the best. There was a lot of talk last offseason that they would move him, and he really helped that team this year. So if they could keep him, I think they would love to. But if they can't, they have the defense enough that they could definitely replace him. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I definitely expect that if Lehner's injured and he's on LTIR to start season, the Knights don't make any moves, and they're fine going into the season with the roster they have. If they don't have enough cap space and Lehner is healthy, I definitely expect the Martinez trade is very likely at that point in time. But we'll have to wait and see. I still expect Lehner to be injured, but we'll have to wait until closer to training camp to figure that out. With the Buffalo Sabres, I saw an article by Lance Lysowski who did say that a couple of trade options for the Buffalo Sabres could be Jacob Bryson and Ilya Lyubushkin. Now, both of these guys are pretty solid third pair defensemen, But if you look at the Sabres depth charts, they might not be able to fit into the Sabres lineup. If you look at their team, they have Samuelsson, Tower, and Dahlin. They're the 3 top defensemen. They just signed Clifton and Johnson, so those 2 skyrocket to the top of that team's depth chart. They also have Henri Jokiharju, who's still a pretty good top 4 defenseman and is not too old. So those are your top 6. And then you have 3 guys in Lyubushkin, Bryson, and Stillman fighting for 1 spot, as 2 of those guys are most likely going to have to go on waivers or be traded, and it's very likely that 2 of those guys could be dealt. So, in my opinion, I think Bryson would be the 7th defenseman, and I'll get rid of Stillman and Lyubushkin. But I could definitely see a scenario where they keep Stillman, and then they move down Bryson and Lyubushkin. Now, he said that Bryson could be more of a waivers pickup. He still makes $1.85 for the next year. He's going to be an RFA at the end of the year. He's a decent defenseman. Could be a 3rd-pair defenseman on a team, but could most likely be like a 7th defenseman. He's more of a 6th, 7th defenseman. So if there were to be a team who would really need a defenseman, a good, solid, maybe 3rd-pair defenseman, and has some injuries, I think there would definitely be a chance that Bryson got picked up off of waivers, or possibly were to be acquired in a trade. I've also said a little bit that I would not be surprised if Lyubushkin was acquired. He's not the best defenseman, but he's a solid stabilizing force on a 3rd pair. So he does make a little bit more money than I think a lot of teams will like him to at 2.75. So the Sabres may have to try and retain a little bit of salary if they were to move him. But I think there would be a lot of teams interested in a stabilizing fourth in a 3rd pair role. So I could also see Stillman be moved. In my personal opinion, Stillman's a decent defenseman. He's really good on the 3rd pair. And I think there would be teams interested in him as well. So going to be interesting to see, but it sounds like the Sabres, whether via waivers or via trade, will have to move at least 1 or 2 defensemen before the season starts, as they have a log jam in the back end right now, and there's quite a likely chance that at least 1, if not 2, of Lyubushkin, Stillman, and Bryson are moved before the season starts to create enough roster flexibility. So going to be interesting to see, but definitely it sounds like Lyubushkin and Bryson are likely trade options for the Buffalo Sabres. Next we go over to the Calgary Flames here. Just a quick update here, but on his recent hit on the NHL Network, Elliot Friedman did say on an update that there was nothing really going on around Elias Lindholm. He said that it's all quiet around Lindholm and the Flames right now. He says the Flames really do want to try and extend him around that $8.5-9 million range to try and keep him long term. It sounds like Lindholm still hasn't really decided. It doesn't sound like Lindholm said firm no, but he also hasn't accepted his big long-term mega deal that has been rumored to be given by the Flames. So it's really quite interesting to see if Lindholm's really even considering staying with the Flames. So it sounds like there's nothing on Lindholm right now, no trade rumors, no updates on the contract extensions. It sounds like it's really in a stalemate right now with Lindholm and the Flames. So it's going to be interesting to see. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't think the Flames can go into the season without having Lindholm signed. He's too big of a piece of their organization to not sign him before the season starts and have him enter the final year of his deal going into the season. Like I said, if you have Tanev, you have Backlund, you have Zadorov, they're lower-end pieces. If they go into the final year of their deal to start the season, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they walked via free agency. Lindholm and Hanifin are too big of a pieces. If you don't sign them before the season starts, I think you have to trade them. So I still think a Lindholm trade is possible, especially if he doesn't sign with the Flames. And it just sounds like everything's quiet on the Lindholm front right now. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it sounds like Lindholm is very likely to still possibly sign with the Flames. But at this point in time, it sounds like it's also very likely that nothing happens at this point in time. So Friedman said that they were looking to sign between $8.5 and $9 million. Another thing is, Lindholm's pretty close in value to what Sebastian Aho is, maybe even a tad bit better. And Aho just got 9.75 from the Carolina Hurricanes. So just like Aho, I think if he were to hit the open market next year, he could get between $9.5 and 10, maybe $10.5 million. I think there would be enough teams out there looking for a top-line center that they would be interested. So, in my opinion, the Flames may have to get more than $9 million to keep Lindholm long-term. I'm not exactly sure if that's exactly the case, but it would not surprise me at all if they needed to offer a little bit more than $9 million. So, going to be interesting to see, but Lindholm, it sounds like it's all quiet on his front right now, and that it sounds like there's still a waiting game right now for the Flames in Elias Lindholm. And lastly, with the Pittsburgh Penguins, on that NHL Network hit he did, Elliot Friedman also said we could get some clarity on Erik Karlsson this week. Now he says the next 48 hours, like we talked about earlier in the video, the Penguins get a buyout window. He says Kyle Dubas doesn't really like to use the buyout window, but it could give them flexibility that could really help go a long way. So he says that if they get a buyout window, buyout at least the player, then there's a very likely chance we get some clarity on Erik Karlsson this week. A lot of people think that a Karlsson trade could happen at some point this weekend. So it's very likely we could get a trade for Erik Karlsson at some point. If there was a Karlsson trade, I would try to get it done as fast as I can. I'll probably do a separate video talking about the Erik Karlsson trade, probably not wait until Tuesday, but it's going to be interesting to see. So we could get a Karlsson trade at some point this weekend. Hopefully we do. I think the Karlsson trade is the biggest thing holding up the market right now. And I think once Karlsson gets dealt, we could get a trickle-down effect. Maybe Hanifin gets dealt. Maybe Pesce gets dealt. Maybe we get some of these contract extensions announced. Maybe we get some more trades. I think the Karlsson trade is probably the biggest thing holding up the market right now. And while I don't expect there to be a flurry of activity after a Karlsson trade, as soon as Karlsson's traded, I do think things could pick up a little bit. Maybe even some of those free agents who are still waiting for new deals. So it's going to be interesting to see, but he said that it's quite possible that come Sunday night, after the buyout window is basically closed for the Penguins, it's very, very likely we could get some clarity on Karlsson. So, like I said, I still expect either Petrie or Granlund to be bought out by the Penguins, so they save them some cap space. The other to be moved at some point, possibly to San Jose, maybe to a third team. And then with those cap space, they work on a deal, and they finally are able to get Karlsson to Pittsburgh. But, like I said, it's not a done deal. It could still wait a little bit longer, but it sounds like with the Penguins having their buyout window and O'Connor domino finally falling, it sounds like it's very likely that we could get some clarity on the Erik Karlsson situation later this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see. I would love to hear your thoughts on all that was discussed today down in the comments. Do you guys like the Wilson signing, or do you think it was a little bit too much money in term? Do you think that the Rangers can move Zac Jones if he doesn't make the roster as a top 6 defenseman? Do you think Martinez is moved by the Golden Knights if they wind up needing to clear cap space? Do you think the Sabres wind up moving one of Lyubushkin or Bryson if they wind up having to trade one because of their logjam on the defensive end? What do you think happens with Lindholm? It sounds like all's quiet right now. Does he get traded? Does he get signed? Definitely let me know down in the comments what you think about Lindholm. And do you think we see a Karlsson trade happen later this weekend? I think it's extremely likely. I would not say it's a guarantee because we've said that Karlsson trade would happen a while now, and it never did. So I definitely would not say it's a guarantee, but I think this might be the best time we could have a Karlsson trade in a very long time. So going to be interesting to see, but definitely love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you really liked it, remember to subscribe down below. I also do a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so definitely check that out. I have links down in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.